You may think you have 5 direct competitors that do the same thing as you. I don't think like that. I view my competition as just people's attention. And you could buy people's attention with like ads and stuff like that. But to earn people's attention and to really create a brand that, really stands for something that people can like get behind, you got to make it fun.
There's an entire generation of Americans who no longer care about prestige, titles, work travel, fancy offices, and lunches. Welcome to Mundane Millionaires, a podcast for this generation of small business owners who want to set their ego aside and focus on what matters: family, community, quality of life, and cash flows. In each episode, Eric Pacifici and Kevin Henderson uncover what it takes to get a little money in the bank, control your time, and invest in building great families and lives. Let's get started.
All right, welcome to another episode of Mundane Millionaires. Today we have a special guest with us, Andrew Gazdecki of Acquire.com, formerly microacquire.com. Andrew is a 30 under 30 entrepreneur and the founder of Altacoin.io and business apps, both of which he's exited. It's a really fun conversation. Andrew gets into his scarcity mindset, why he is the serial entrepreneur that he is from his childhood. And, he dives into his Twitter strategy, the marketing genius behind Acquire.com, some of his recent antics with Twitter and trying to release the Acquire handle, which is a ton of fun. And then at the end, we get into building the Zillow of business buying, some of the challenges that SMB presents, that tech doesn't present, and where they're planning to take their roadmap with Acquire.com. Andrew Gazdecki. So 30 under 30 entrepreneur for Inc. magazine. That's kind of huge, isn't it? Like is that a big one?
My mom thought it was cool. I guess. Do you want to hear the story behind it?
Yeah.
So my first business is called Business Apps, spelled incorrectly because couldn't afford the correct domain, but it was a Inc. magazine, fastest growing company, 3 years in a row. We were number 58, 92, I forget the other number. And all of a sudden, you just kind of applied to it. And then one day they're just like, oh, you won the thing. And I was like, okay, thanks. That's kind of the whole story. And then the funny part about being on Inc.'s like fastest growing companies, the first time I had to literally change my cell phone number because they sell the list to every recruiting company. Yeah, like your phone just blows up. And this was before Apple had the silence unknown caller feature. So yeah. I've literally changed my phone number. I was like, this is absolutely. And then we stopped sharing financials with them because just getting on that list, it's cool, but you just get ready for some cold outreach.
It's marketing. Yeah, they do that to us as lawyers too. There's the best lawyers in America. There are a handful of them that really matter, but even that is still, it's still marketing. To your point about ambulance chasers, I think it means more to the, to the park bench attorney or the billboard attorney than it does to other people. But so that ruins it. So they market it out, huh?
Yeah, well, I'm just glad it wasn't Forbes 30 under 30 because their track record it's like a sign of bad. Yeah,
is that like a death sentence?
Oh man, like their list includes like Elizabeth Holmes, like some really just unfortunate individuals that actually went to jail and stuff like that. I don't know if anyone on the Inc. 30 under 30 has gone to jail for fraud. So, yeah, like Sam Bankman-Fried from FTX was 30 under 30, I think.
Okay.
I could be getting all this wrong, but yeah, they're
so you don't have the PR team pushing hard for that list. I've seen those headlines. It is kind of the kiss of death, and I think that they're one of them. Their top business was SVB, Silicon, the defunct bank, or I guess it still exists. I don't know. So interesting. I didn't know if there was a a meaningful demarcation between pre 30 under 30 and post 30 under 30, though. I guess you're in your 20s.
I think at this point, if you're on a 30 under 30 list, it's more of like I try to hide it. It's a little embarrassing more than it is something to kind of. My mom loves it though. So
Yeah. Well,
it's great,
so
great for your mom.
In full disclosure, I dropped your bio into ChatGPT and I said, give me a concise intro summary for Andrew Gazdecki, and the first thing it pulled up was Inc. 30 Under 30. So ChatGPT just read through your interest in being coy there. Prior to MicroAcquire, which I guess is acquire.com now, Altacoin.io and business apps, which you just talked about, business apps, were those both business buying, business focused? What was the focus of those businesses?
Yeah. So business apps was like a no code drag and drop mobile app builder. I spent 8 years building that one. I started it in college, and that was for the Inc. magazine fastest growing companies. Only raised like 100,000 for that one. And that was when like the iPhone first came out. I was in college and I knew mobile apps were going to be big. I knew the iPhone was going to be big. So it was kind of like a right place, right time business. And then I exited that business when I was 29. The second business, altcoin, that was not successful nearly as business apps. What we were trying to do was speed up times on the Ethereum blockchain, and it's still slow, so we didn't succeed. And then it was
only so much you could do.
Yeah, you two might appreciate this as attorneys, but we were building the software with the first use case being like a decentralized Coinbase, and then the SEC came out with basically saying like, hey, if you launch this, it's going to be deemed as an unregulated securities exchange. Yeah, so me and the team, I remember we were like, yeah, we don't want to go to jail. So, and we don't like crypto that much. So we ended up just selling the assets to a company that did have the proper, like a broker dealer license and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just tried to look it up now to see if it still exists. It goes to bnktothefuture.com. It looks like it maybe got sold to a portfolio of fintech and crypto companies.
Yeah, so that's a company that bought it, and what they do is they're essentially like the crowd fund investor for crypto companies. So they're just like WeFunder, a Republic, but specifically for crypto.
Got it.
Interesting. And were those simultaneous, Andrew, or did you launch altcoin after you sold the business app, or how did that develop?
Yeah, good question. So when we were in due diligence for business apps, I kind of had this sort of like personal like crisis of like, what am I going to do? I want to, because the terms we negotiated were all cash on close, no earn out. I'm out in 90 days. And so I'm like, what do I do? I'm 29. I still like to build stuff. And so during due diligence, I actually started working on that. And then in hindsight, I should have taken a break. I wish I just like traveled the world or something like that. But instead I decided to take on, some new problems, new people.
How old were you then?
Well, I sold business apps when I was 29, and so launched altcoin when I was 29, and then sold that when it was a short stint there. So like 31, if I had to.
So you grinded your whole 20s then.
Yeah. So still today, I guess.
Yeah.
Was that your?
I don't know. I'm still working.
Was that always sort of your plan or trajectory, or did you graduate from high school, going to college, thinking like I'm going to go be a big tech something or private equity investor, and you sort of stumbled into entrepreneurship, or what led you so early to kind of launch your own company and be entrepreneurial?
Yeah, good question. I grew up in this town, San Clemente, and parents, we didn't really come from too much money. Father passed away when I was 6. We were on food stamps for a minute, but life was like good. So don't feel bad for me or anything like that. But
San Clemente is a pretty decent place to grow up.
Yeah, but what's interesting is when you're living in like an apartment and you go to your friend's $5 million ocean view house, and so money kind of became very top of mind, I guess, for me. Not in like I want to be like, I was just kind of curious, like, how does this all work? Why do you have this? And so from maybe age 13, basically when people were collecting baseball cards, I was selling them. when I wanted a new skateboard, I needed to figure out a way to pay for it myself. So I was selling stuff on eBay when I was 15. Kind of a funny story, but I had like a really successful eBay store. And what I would do is just basically buy stuff spelled incorrectly and then resell it. So basically arbitrage on price when the listing was bad. And I met the president of PayPal one time and I was like, oh, I've been using eBay and PayPal since I was like 15. And he goes, you got to be 18. And I was like, oh, just kidding. But at the time,
I meant 18.
yeah. So just to answer your question, I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. And I think entrepreneurship is, sexy and kind of cool and like glamorized a little bit too much. But for me, it was just like a survival mechanism. Like, I want a skateboard, so I got to go earn it.
Yeah.
And
do you
then
feel like you've ever shaken that sense of scarcity? So you had an exit, right? You're 29, you exit. I assume it was for probably a decent amount of money. You don't have to say how much, but probably more than most people see in their lifetime. You have an exit and you're like, I got to get right back to work, like no time. Is that a product of that scarcity mindset that was kind of drilled into you as a kid? I can tell you, I've dealt with the same thing recently, kind of been doing some work and reading some books, trying to unwind that. Do you feel like you're a victim of the same thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've unpacked that with a few people, and I mean, my greatest fear is being poor. I mean, when you've seen the floor, it just, it's not fun. And I saw just a life that I didn't want for my family. And so, yeah, that's some big motivation. But when I started a second company, once I exited that one and it wasn't as good of an outcome, I kind of took some time to reflect. And, I think with my first business, what happened was I put too much of my self identity into, I'm like 21, and then all the way up to 29, I'm the CEO of this company. All these people are relying on me, and then it's just all gone. And so I think that led me to immediately start another company, because that sense of, companies aren't families by any means, but I loved everyone I worked with, and that was just all gone. And so I wanted that back really bad. So again, looking back in hindsight, I think I started it just out of, I'm a CEO of a startup. I need to have another startup, but that isn't how it should be and how I should have been thinking. But, over time you start to kind of reflect and unpack stuff like that. But now I'm at a place where, I just love building stuff. Like, I think that's where I'm the happiest. And when I feel most alive is just making cool stuff.
Building. Yeah.
So fast forwarding then through, couple exits and whatever, when did you identify a need for an acquire.com, right? When did you start thinking about, man, I should start building something, online, tech enabled to solve a problem in the business buying ecosystem? How did that develop?
Yeah, that's a great question. So at first I literally have a journal entry. I don't have, not like a weird journal, like, hey, dear diary. I have this journal that I write
Dear
in
diary.
Nah, just like, things that are going really well in business, things that I'm concerned about. And then I have like 3 things that I usually say I'm grateful for. And I reflect on that every single month, because it helps with, every business has some huge problem, but then you reflect back in 30 days and you're like, oh, that problem's long. I got a new problem. So it gives you like a better perspective into, what may seem like a huge problem today isn't really that big and it will be solved. But to answer your question, so, after building 2 companies, I thought, it'd be really cool to buy one. I could skip the eating glass phase. And what I mean is product market fit. You're talking to customers. It probably won't work out. And, that stage, the 0 to 1 stage, is a grind. And I just didn't know if I had enough gas in the tank left for it. And I didn't really have any ideas. And then I looked at just some of the regular spots. I didn't know business brokers existed until I started I just thought it was investment banks. I didn't know there was like a group of individuals focused.
Guys. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that existed. I thought just maybe there's investment bankers that focus on that. So long story short, I just thought, hey, this is an interesting market. I love startups. I love working with entrepreneurs. And there hasn't been really any innovation in the space. And I think it could be interesting. I think there's going to be a trend of two things: more people building businesses without raising capital. And so those businesses being too small for investment banks or even business brokers. And then also a trend in entrepreneurship through acquisition, which was kind of what I was thinking. So for a little bit, for probably the first 4 months of MicroAcquire's existence, it was just me. And it was kind of like a deal flow platform. That was my thought, was like, oh, I'll eventually, find something to buy. And it's just a great way to kind of network with people in the industry and learn from them. But yeah, just kind of, anytime I've entered a market, I always, like before business apps as an example, I had a job board that connected mobile developers with businesses, and I ended up selling that and started business apps. And the point I'm trying to make is I knew mobile apps were going to be big. So I was just like, what can I do to get myself in that market? And I did the same thing with entrepreneurship through acquisition by building MicroAcquire. I didn't know where it was going to go. So I didn't start with like a grandiose, like Zillow for M&A, let's go. It was just kind of like, hey, this is interesting. But I do have a journal entry the day before I launched it that I wrote that's like, I don't know if this is going to work, but I think it's really cool. And the website looks really good. So I'm happy.
The website was nice. That's cool.
I'm pretty sure I have a similar journal entry or note entry somewhere when we were about to quit our big corporate legal jobs and launch.
Yeah, but it's not the opposite, Kevin. It says, but the website is terrible. So, and the website is terrible.
So the thought process behind like the user experience of, and this may sound kind of weird, but I felt to get a startup to, and there's also other points I should add too. Like after selling, business apps, I had so many friends reach out to me in terms of like, how do you sell a business? What's due diligence? What the hell is a private equity firm?
Yeah.
What do they do? Like, how did you, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I thought everyone knew this stuff. Just because there's books on like everything from marketing to sales, but nothing really on like how to get your company acquired. There's maybe there's a few good ones now, but 6 years ago, I think there was maybe like 2.
Yeah.
So I just saw that
tough space for resources.
Yeah. So I thought, it'd be cool to help entrepreneurs in that sense as well. But yeah, I don't know where I was going at that point. I kind of forgot my train of thought.
Andrew, have you ever taken a culture index? Have you ever done a personality test like a Myers-Briggs or anything like? Because I feel like, and Kevin and I actually had a conversation recently with somebody else who runs a business brokerage, or well, I don't know what it is. It's a website with businesses. And we were like, what's up with acquire.com? Like they really seem like they're the fastest moving player and, kind of that they get it. And the person goes, Gazdecki. They got Gazdecki, And I feel like I see you marketing and selling this brand and, the Twitter stuff and all this and trying to get the acquire.com or the acquire handle. You strike me as like the rainmaker, kind of the marketing first kind of guy, and I love it. Is your background in marketing or where does that come from?
Yeah, great question. So one thing that I've always believed in terms of just making any successful business is, number one, you have to enjoy it. Like it has to be fun. So I have so much fun marketing Acquire. It's, I do funny things, I'm chasing after a Twitter handle.
The Twitter cakes were incredible.
Yeah, that was my way of just saying like, hey, I'm not getting it. Here's some cake. Everyone stop asking about
Hail
it.
Mary. It was yeah,
that was from the 1 yard line. But yeah, I mean, I just think the number 2 would be founder market fit, and that just basically means I'm an entrepreneur. I feel like I kind of understand other entrepreneurs. Maybe I'm kind of guessing here, but like I've had compliments of, our marketing campaigns with that Russ Hanneman guy from Silicon Valley. I'm an entrepreneur. I've watched that show like 4 times. Yeah. It's hilarious. It's hilariously and scary. It's accurately scary if that's the right grammar. But so just things like that, I guess, just understanding like your customer, and then it just being really, really fun, because it's really hard to compete against someone where it's fun when it feels like work to you, because that other person's going to do creative stuff. And then I could also kind of tell you other things in terms of how I think about marketing, where, you know, you may think you have, you know, 5 direct competitors that do the same thing as you. I don't think like that. I view my competition as just people's attention, and you could buy people's attention with like ads and stuff like that. But to earn people's attention and to really create a brand that, you know, really stands for something that people can like get behind, you got to make it fun. You got to, you know, do some like, you know, Richard Branson does some cool marketing stunts. He's not one of my like favorite entrepreneurs, but he's up there for sure. But yeah, just, I don't know. I love my job.
No, I think it resonates. I mean, that's, you know, Kevin and I's story. I wanted to buy a business before, and then, you know, had people come to me and say, hey, I need a lawyer to help me buy a business. And I thought, okay, here's a natural fit. And it's like this passion, and, you know, it's a ton of fun. And my clients resonate with me, so it doesn't make it like work. So I see that in you, and you look like you're having a blast. And you've got this really pithy way of tweeting, you know what I'm talking about? You've got this style where it's like 2 sentences, but it's like so on point with entrepreneurs that it goes viral almost every time you tweet. So it's pretty cool to watch.
Do you wanna hear my Twitter strategy? I was just at lunch, and so he like really wanted to know. And this goes back to like, you need to find a way to make it fun. So all of my tweets before, you used to be able to see where they came, but they were all from my phone. It's literally just me making coffee, and then I'm just like, I don't know, I think this is a good tip. So like, I don't pre-write stuff. I don't really like, I've had some terrible tweets, like whatever. Like, so my point being is, you know, the if you can make it fun for you, where you're not putting yourself under pressure, like, all right, I need this thread to go viral, or like something, like, you're just kind of like, I don't know, dark mode is cool for a startup. I don't know. I think it's funny. So again, just like going back to, because then you'll be consistent. If you enjoy it, you'll be consistent. And if you're consistent, that's when you really see results, and, you know, et cetera. And then you start to really find kind of your voice and your vibe. But, you know, being able to find a way to make it fun, I think makes it work.
So you don't have like a full set of draft tweets ready to go, kind of, you know, a la strip mall guy. You're just making coffee and you're riffing in your kitchen. Because some of these it's hard to believe. I actually don't know that I believe you, because some of these are really good. I'm looking at your top tweets right now, and some of these are too well thought out. Like, you've got, startups are hard as hell. They take years to build. You'll be stressed a lot. You'll work long hours. You'll think about giving up. Remember why you started. You wanted to solve a problem. You wanted to help people at scale. You wanted to change a market. So do that. And it's like, it reads.
Hey, what time is that written?
You know what? It doesn't say. Let me see if I can click on it.
7
p.m. 7 p.m. So that was a
7 p.m. I wrote that.
So
I wrote that in bed watching a TV show. I remember writing that.
But it's stuff that like you've lived in, right? So you say things that resonate, and I think that's pretty cool.
And one other thing I'll say too is just my favorite thing about Twitter is, and this sounds super cheesy, but I like motivating and inspiring people. Like, some people on Twitter hate it. Some people are like, oh, now they're like, but some people need that. You know, I believe, you know, the biggest hurdle to enter entrepreneurship for a lot of people is just getting started, like just that first step, or they feel stuck or something like that. So when I write, those are my favorite tweets to write, because then it feels like, you know, it's just my thoughts, but someone on the other end might be reading it and feeling like they're stuck, and like they need that extra piece of motivation. And if that helps one person, that fires me up. So that's a slice of cheese pizza, but
I'll be like out for a morning jog or something, and I'll like think of something so cheesy and such a platitude. I'm like, I'm doing it, and it never goes well. So I'm an aspiring amateur motivational speaker myself too. Kevin's not motivational at all. Kevin keeps it down to earth. So
that's right. I'm the real lawyer in the room that's going to remind you of why you can't take. No, I'm kidding.
He's the disclaimer at the end of your tweet.
I'm kidding. No, I probably shouldn't say it on a recording that'll be out for public assumption, but I tell people all the time, like, I'd much rather be doing this, be tweeting motivational stuff, be making YouTube videos, going to conferences than I ever would, drafting an asset purchase agreement.
Yeah.
I love that about this space, and it's why we love what we're doing, because it marries the skills that we spent an adult career developing. You don't want to throw those away in terms of like high quality legal practice, but it marries it with something unique, I think, about this entrepreneur community that was just lost on me for a decade in the corporate world.
Not all heroes wear capes,
Eric does though. So
I've got a closet full of capes. Let's switch gears. Let's talk about the business. What would you characterize Acquire.com as? Are you a business brokerage? Or are you a platform? Like what is it?
Marketplace.
It's a market.
But we do have a brokerage subsidiary, because as you know, to take commissions on any sort of transaction, specifically asset sales, you need to have a licensed brokerage firm. So we do have one. We have broker deals, and we're going to be taking commissions marketplace wide next month. So it's I guess another way to put it would be, a tech-enabled investment bank, tech-enabled brokerage firm.
Got it. And so Kevin and I recently had a conversation of like, why does the Zillow of business marketplaces not quite exist yet? Right? Like the current landscape is pretty terrible. Like, I think you're probably running the best platform. In fact, I sent this tweet. I said, who is building the Zillow of business buying, and why does that not exist yet? And I think half the people who responded said Acquire.com. And so I'm just curious from your perspective, tell us everything about the marketplace. One, how do we get the best deal, right? Is there a certain time that we should be logging in? Is there some way to track as new businesses come forward? And then two, how do you guys differentiate yourself, right? Because I just see a bunch of glorified bulletin boards of, Biz Buy Sell's the most prominent example. I think they have like 11 million unique monthly visitors. And to me, it seems like, I think it's owned by CoStar, like they've made no investment in that platform. They have no interest in making it interesting or enjoyable to look at. They have no interest in making the process smoother. And then I see you guys and you're trying to make the lawyer obsolete, with the purchase agreement platform. You're trying to do a bunch of things. And so I'm curious about both of those things. One, how do we as buyers get the best deal? And then two, how are you guys making this business more interesting for the user?
Yeah, great questions. So the first part in terms of, how we're different, just how I kind of think about the space and the business I want to build is, we don't want to just build a big brokerage. Like, I think that's kind of an interesting take when people are like, I'm going to build a better biz buy sell, but then it's really just like a SMB business brokerage. You're not really changing anything. You're not really disrupting anything. You're not really innovating on anything. You're not really making anything too much more efficient. I guess you could have a more efficient, sales process or whatever it may be, but you don't really have any defensibility in that business. And so a lot of the focus that we put into, what we build at Acquire.com is, how can we, standardize and streamline and just make the acquisition process, more efficient for both the buyer and the seller. And so we do have tools where you can draft an LOI with a bunch of, different terms like conditional holdback, seller financing. You can edit the docs. So we're not trying to get rid of you guys. We still need lawyers, and I still recommend lawyers wholeheartedly, but you can draft an asset purchase agreement. But then we've also built tools like a P&L builder. Like, find me an SMB with a clean P&L and
and I'll find you a liar.
Right.
So tool, but the same is for tech. A lot of, sub $5 million businesses don't have, clean P&L. So we connect directly into their payment systems. We've also built a number of just different tools like that and we're going to continue to expand on that product suite. So we get to a point where you can bring a deal into Acquire.com, whether or not you find it on our platform, and our tooling is so good that it just makes the process easier for both the buyer and the seller. That's kind of like the eventual goal. Will we get there? I don't know, but we're going to try. And then number two, how do you get the best deal on acquire.com? Well, if you sign up, we have a daily newsletter that we include generally the best startups that we've listed. All startups will vet, and so we'll give it a glance over, not to the point of which a business broker would, because we're taking hundreds of startups live, not 5 or 10 per month. And we also have a Slack app, so if you just install the Slack app, you can get instant notifications when deals goes live. Also, just following us on Twitter, we post every deal on Twitter. So just like a lot of different, we have like a Facebook group that has a couple thousand. So just like we try to post the deal in as many places as possible is kind of the short answer. So that's how you get notified of the best deals. Yeah, go ahead.
And with a reach of your platform, what's the normal life cycle of a quote unquote good deal? I mean, when are you seeing things pop onto the website for the first time and go public with these, to the point that they're under LOI and someone's actively chasing?
It depends on the business. There's multiple factors, like how profitable is a business, how's it being priced, what was preparation like, do they have a clean P&L, is there a SIM attached, is there due diligence checklist, is there an asset is there what sort of preparation, responsiveness of the seller. So there's some variables like that are in our control and then outside of our control, because we don't require all of that upfront prep.
Yeah,
but we do provide docs like, hey, you should fill stuff out because it helps everybody involved. But some founders will go with just the connected P&L or what have you. But on average, I would say let's use an example of like a SaaS business that's doing $500,000 to $1 million in profit. That business will probably receive on average 60 to 70 NDAs, and will probably receive out of that 5 to 8 LOIs, 3 being meaningful, and that process can take I'd say 2 months depending on how they're running it. Typically, we recommend like running a process with a deal schedule, keeping everybody with deadlines for briefing calls, for indicative offers, and then formal offers. So if you do all that correctly, I mean, you'll get swarmed on for sure. Yeah. But that's kind of like a bullseye business. But then if you come on the marketplace with a company that's losing a bunch of money and it doesn't have all its proper materials and the seller is really unresponsive, then that business likely isn't going to respond. And we have kind of some data points that we look at, and we'll score the deal internally.
Yeah, interesting. And are most of these, I mean, just given the size of your target, are most of these acquisitions kind of similar to the small business space at large, where buyers are using an SBA loan, or do you see, because of a more tech-oriented nature in your platform, do you see more kind of strategic cash buyers, or what's the profile of folks using the platform the most?
Yeah, we see kind of everybody that you could probably think of. I shouldn't say everybody, just Justin Bieber isn't on there, but like, or Drake or any celebrity, but private equity, someday, private equity, lots of private equity. That's probably the main buyer pool, financial buyers.
Really?
Yeah. And there's a lot of layers.
How big are these deals, Andrew?
The largest that we've done is, low 8 figures, and kind of our sweet spot is like, the 1 to 5 million. And then we see a lot of transactions below that. So we'll see transactions as small as 10K all the way up to, $10 million.
And that's why we dropped the micro from Micro Acquire. What was the driving for? I mean, those are not small deals from our perspective, at least. Maybe other people in mid-market land would think so, but I mean, a $1 to $5 million average purchase price is not a micro deal.
Yeah, so dropping the micro, we wanted to we did a lot of like research behind it in terms of with our customers, and it was limiting in terms of our positioning in the market of what is listed on here. Like, is it just little 5K, no revenue, random applications, or are they like real profitable software companies? And so we wanted to move over towards or move up market, and we felt that dropping the micro would help, just based off conversations with buyers, sellers, kind of everybody that we talk to, because micro could mean a lot of things. It could mean small, tiny, little.
Yep.
And no one wants a micro acquisition. We want to help maximize acquisition. So I still got micro acquire painted back here. So it'll always be in our hearts, but by dropping it, we just felt it was more of a stronger, brand name for the business.
Yeah.
What's the roadmap to getting to Main Street? You flirted with it on Twitter. I think you put out a poll. And when I saw the poll, I was like, this is, Gazdecki marketing. There's no way he hasn't already decided to come to Main Street, but he wants to gin up some excitement about it. Is it our tip, like, a plumbing company compared to a SaaS company? What are the challenges of taking your platform and applying it to typical Main Street deals?
Yeah, so we've looked at it quite a bit, and we'll be there eventually. I don't want to give any hints as to when, but it's a tough market, and I think that's probably why you haven't seen a lot of innovation in that market, because it's tough. It takes time, and I don't think it can be like, if we talk about biz buy sell, you could probably make a marginally better biz buy sell pretty easily, but they already have kind of the network effects of that. So if you don't come with there's something called like 10x better. I don't know who coined it, but to get people to switch platforms, it needs to be 10 times better, 5 times better, because the time it takes to learn a new platform, and then 5 times better for them to even care, or something like that. So it needs to be significantly better. And so our wedge into the market is with software companies, but over time we want to go all businesses. But when you think about Main Street, I'm not an expert like both of you, but I look at it and I see 2 big issues. One is the buyer profile and the seller profile. So generally the seller is looking to retire. It's the business is completely, going to be valued in different ways, very similar to software businesses, but it's got a physical location. It's got, there's just so many different components. And then the buyer of that business, also some similarities to, tech buyers, but the seller is typically going to be of an age where technology is going to be harder for them to adopt. And so that's kind of the first barrier. And then the second barrier is geography constraints, which really limits the buyer pool. So if we had listings, and let's say we had, 5 in Texas or something like that, our buyer pool is, presumably only limited to Texas, even though I know some buyers will pick up small business out of state, but generally it's, it's a geographical purchase where the 2 people are meeting, shaking hands, stuff like that, and so those are some of the things that, the biggest hurdles in my mind. And so we're thinking through, like, how can we, improve on those, like, 2 items for those 2 types of buyer profiles, being the buyers looking to acquire, small businesses, and then also more specifically, the owner of the business. Because if I'm helping them sell their business, it's probably not going to work. They're probably going to want to work with someone older. I could be
the challenge.
Yeah, the sell side is a challenge. And then also finding deal flow as well. I think that's kind of the big unlock. Right now, I think if anyone just wants a business idea, I think if you just went through biz buy sell and just sorted through a lot of the junk and then just put, like, hey, here's the best 10 deals from biz buy sell onto a website, that could be a decent, business right there. Just the filtering, I think, is just so bad on that website.
ChatGPT do the filtering for us, so we can.
Yeah, that could literally be a business right there. But getting the actual transaction done, and then finding a way to do those transactions at scale, and being able to capture commission to build a significant business, it's hard. I mean, and then there's 20 other things that you guys know about, and then that I'm not even thinking about.
Well, the biggest challenge that I see in the marketplace is the sub $1 million deal. What do you do about nobody wants to service the sub $1 million deal. The broker who represents doesn't take it seriously, doesn't give time of day. When buyers approach, they do such a bad job of representing that business. Then you actually find a buyer. You have a really hard time finding a lawyer who's willing to take it or who it makes sense economically to take it. And so, I look at smart tech guys like you and I say, give us a solution, Andrew, because there are a lot of sub-$1 million businesses out there that need to be bought and sold. So if anybody out there wants a business idea, solve that one.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's an unserviced area of just the M&A landscape, and I think technology is what's needed to solve it, because then you could do it at scale. The cost to draft the legal docs, or you might not necessarily need a business broker. That's maybe something we could debate on, but we've successfully kind of removed the middleman for software companies in terms of brokers. And I think that's kind of the path for that market. And to get there, I think it's a lot of software tooling that streamlines the process, has a lot of trust built into it, where, it's a process when you go through, it has every step of, leading both the buyer and the seller towards a successful close.
Yeah. Well, we're running up on time, Andrew. I know we talked a little bit about where acquire.com may go next. Maybe wrap up for a second. Is there anything Andrew Gazdecki wants to share kind of personally? Like what Gazdecki, what do you have in the pipeline? Any kind of exciting things you have that you're working on outside of Acquire that you want to talk about, or where do you go from here?
I mean, we had a big product release today. We're going to be improving escrow. Escrow is like the biggest complaint we get all over the place. So we're going to be improving upon that. And then, you never know. We might make an announcement soon. So, or maybe we won't. We'll keep you hanging.
No, that's awesome. Well, let's wrap up. I know Eric mentioned your Twitter a couple of times. We know you very actively from Twitter, but where else can people find you, follow along acquire.com and you and your journey? Feel free to shout out any of those channels before we sign off.
Yeah, just you can go to acquire.com or acquire.com. You can find me.
Love it.
Cool.
or at a Gazdecki on Twitter if you're brave enough to get that spelled correctly.
I love it. You're a must follow. Thanks for coming on, Andrew. This was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Mundane Millionaires. If you enjoyed what you heard in this episode, make sure to follow Mundane Millionaires wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. See you next time.